Good day, everyone. Today, I will be talking about the mechanisms of respiration. Respiration is a process in living organisms involving the production of energy, typically with the intake of oxygen and release of carbon dioxide from the oxidation of complex organic substances. Now, the first kind of respiration is cellular respiration, which is an internal chemical reaction involving the generation of energy. Now, the second type is pulmonary respiration, which includes breathing movement, exchange of gases in the lungs, transport of gases by blood, and exchange of gases. It is commonly referred to as breathing, and it is the process of air flowing into the lungs during inspiration, also known as inhalation, and out of the lungs during expiration or exhalation. Now, breathing is the process in which air moves in and out of the lungs, which is carried out through various respiratory organs. It is also a continuous process and goes on throughout the life of an organism. Now, the mechanism of respiration involves the breathing mechanism and exchange of gases. It occurs by diffusion in the alveoli and depends upon the pressure differences between blood and tissues or atmospheric air and blood. Respiration takes place, rather, exchange of gases takes place at the surface of the alveolus. Now, respiration takes place in this series of events. First is transport of oxygen, internal respiration, transport of carbon dioxide from tissues to lungs, intrapleural breathing, and respiratory gas transport. First, oxygen in the blood is carried to the tissue in two forms: oxyhemoglobin, the chemical composition of oxygen with hemoglobin, and solution of oxygen in the blood plasma. Oxygen in the blood combines with hemoglobin when concentration of oxygen is high in the blood. Oxyhemoglobin, being unstable, dissociates to release oxygen. Low oxygen, low pH, and high temperatures stimulate the dissociation process. Second is internal respiration, which is the gaseous exchange taking place in the tissues. Here, oxygen is carried in the form of oxyhemoglobin, which gets dissociated to release oxygen. This oxygen breaks down glucose to release carbon dioxide, water, and energy, where the energy is utilized by the body, while the carbon dioxide is diffused from the tissues. Next, we have the transport of carbon dioxide from tissues to the lungs. It is transported by three mechanisms. Some carbon dioxide dissolves in the water of plasma to form carbonic acid. Carbonic acid ionizes to form bicarbonate ions. The hydrogen ions are catalyzed by the enzyme carbonic anhydrase. Bicarbonate ions combine with sodium and potassium to form sodium bicarbonate and potassium bicarbonate. Some carbon dioxide combines with hemoglobin for the formation of carbaminohemoglobin and is finally carried to the lungs and released out of the body through expiration. Now, intrapleural breathing is referred to as the pressure that is present in the space between the pleura and the lungs. This space is known as the pleural cavity, and the pressure in this region is normally less than the atmospheric pressure. The lung movement here is governed by the pressure gradient, transpulmonary pressure, existing between the pleura and the lungs. The difference in pressures between intrapulmonary and intrapleural pressures is known as the transpulmonary pressure. Pressure in the pleural cavity while breathing turns negative, while there is an increase in the transpulmonary pressure, causing the lungs to expand. Meanwhile, in expiration, the lungs recoil as a result of an increase in the pleural pressure. The competing forces inside the thorax results in the formation of negative intrapleural pressure. One of these forces is associated with the lung's elasticity. The lungs have elastic tissues which cause it to be pulled inwards of the thoracic wall. An inward pull of the lung tissue is also generated by the surface tension of the alveolar fluid. The inward tension generated from the lungs is opposed by forces from the thoracic wall and pleural fluid. Now lastly, we have respiratory gas transport. After the gases have scattered in the lungs, blood becomes oxygenated, leaving carbon dioxide. And the next phase of transportation of oxygen-rich blood to the tissues takes place. Meanwhile, the next round of deoxygenated blood is brought to the lungs for the cycle to continue. In the bloodstream, the transportation of gases occurs all through the body, contributing to the cardiovascular system, comprising the blood vessels and the heart. Blood carrying oxygen leaves the lungs to flow into the heart through pulmonary veins, which are pumped to the rest of the body from the left ventricle through the aorta and its corresponding branches. So that is all for respiration. Thank you for listening.